Reorganization of select board officers, mainly the chair, vice chair, and the clerk. Anybody interested in being chair other than me?
I would.
Okay.
Not me.
Okay.
I've got Ferk up the, whatski.
All right. Keith, you want to say something? Or?
Yeah. This will be my final year on the select board, so I figure go out on top and join in as chair again. I definitely have a few things that I'd like to change up that we've done differently in the past few years, but I definitely have a little bit more of my finger on the pulse of things that we kind of need to change up as a board as well. I've got several different ideas of some priorities that we need to shift. I feel like with the time I was chair, we had a very cohesive board, and I feel like with the people that we have here, we can tackle some of the bigger issues that we've got going on here in town. I feel like we need to do a bit better of a job of listening to the townspeople. I feel like we've spent a lot of time working on things that were important to us, but not necessarily valued as much by the people that matter the most, and it's the voters. So some of our efforts have been in vain. So I think, with some initiatives and some things that we can do, I think we can get a better handle on where we can take things in the town that's going to matter more to the people. So in my final year here, I'd like to turn efforts towards that, and also if I'm chair, I'd like to make open office hours. I know we talked about that in the past, but the opposite Wednesdays from our select board meetings on Tuesday. So if we're having on Tuesday, the following Wednesday, I'd like to be in here while I'm working on the agenda with Sandra and Andrea to have open office hours as well, and welcome other members of the select board so we don't have a quorum, but just a couple of things I'd like to do if I am chair.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
I was trying to remember when we did the police chief search, because that was were you chair that year?
I don't think so. Maybe?
It wasn't me,
Then it must have been me.
because otherwise it would have been Alex. I was just curious, because I was thinking about that whole priority that whole year.
Yeah, and we're going to be kind of in a similar boat with some changing of administrative department, might have changing department heads in the next year or two. So I think we have a lot of important work that's going to be coming up in this the next 12 months. But without a doubt, this will be my last 12 months on the board. So.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to be the chair. I felt like when I filled in as vice chair, I've done a good job, kept the meetings rolling, made sure everybody got heard, kept to the point. Yes, there's a lot on the agendas this year. There's quite a bit going on, and we have a lot to tackle. And I'm ready to tackle that. And that's it. Thank you.
Well, thanks to the two of you for stepping up. Oh, we're going to do the...
Are you going to vote? Do you want to vote by paper?
So is it just normally anybody can try to get the chair, or do you take turns?
No,
is it just
there's no turns. It's just
interest?
if you're interested.
Well,
Last year,
I wasn't interested last year because of my work schedule. This year, I told them to heck with it. I want to take the time
Okay.
to try to be chair. Last year I wouldn't have been able to put the time in. I didn't feel put the correct amount of time in. My schedule is too busy to do a good job. And so anybody, if you wanted to do chair this year, even though you have no experience, there's nothing stopping you from running for chair.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
I will say the tradition has been that it's the person in the last year of their term that typically goes. That's been the tradition. And the discussion in the past has been if somebody feels that they're qualified and it's not their last year in the term, that they could go ahead too. But I think beforehand it just rotated, and it was only a 3-member board up until about 4 years ago.
Yeah, there was a lot
Or
of,
3.
well, it's my turn, and I don't think it's anybody's turn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
was
you
the,
won't
I'm
be
just
able to
recounting
find
the
people
discussion.
now.
Yeah, I'm just
No.
recounting
Yeah.
the discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 5 people, it's not really possible to have a turn the way
Not
that
anymore.
people's terms expire and stuff. So
Yeah.
eventually somebody will.
Yeah.
will not have it during a term.
Yeah.
So do we want to do a paper vote?
That's up to you.
Yeah,
Sure.
Okay.
that's what we did before.
Yeah.
I think it worked
And then
out.
how are we going to figure vice chair?
We can do that after.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. I don't know why. Oh.
Thank you.
Send it down to Andrea.
Sorry, I'm making a mess. Okay.
It's Bernie.
Okay. No, thank you.
Congratulations, Bernie.
Okay, well, thank you.
And I wanted to put my name in the pot for vice because I did clerk, which is largely signing papers, and I'm ready to learn the next set of steps. And I know that Bernie, as the vice, ran 2 or 3 meetings, so got that practice to do that in the eventuality that I would be chair in the future.
Anybody else interested in vice chair?
I'd like to put Heath's name in as vice chair because I think we're going to need some experience this year with the personnel stuff. That's my major
Are you
concern.
interested in vice chair, Heath?
Sure.
Okay, so we have 2 of them for vice chair. Yeah, I guess we,
Pink?
I haven't noticed that.
Thank you.
Although last year for clerk, I will say, everybody just turned and stared at me.
Well, that was the tradition, Sarah,
That often
for the
gets
new
passed to the
person.
new person.
So we can always eyeball David.
For clerk,
Yes.
I see how it is. Okay.
Means you sign the minutes, basically, after they're
Okay.
voted
Yeah.
and approved.
that's all I ever did when I was clerk, is just sign the minutes.
Yeah.
I can sign.
And they're pre-approved, so there's not
They've already been voted.
a high
Correct.
cognitive load on that part.
You just have to show up.
I'm here.
Sarah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, now we need a clerk.
So this is the.
This is where everybody stares at me. I'm already getting a folder.
No, those are
These are
the
for
payroll
everybody.
warrants
And
and
there's the vendor.
Oh,
you
here's
can pass
one.
vendor
out.
warrants.
Yeah.
You can pass the mail folder. and
So, but this
too.
is the
That's
first time
blue
we've
one.
had to look at them, and then we have
No,
to
the
vote
blue
them
one.
and sign them and stuff like
The
that.
blue
So
one, not the red one.
this is an issue that I
He'll
think we
sign
should
it.
address.
Oh,
What's
That's
that?
Just
for people to
FYI.
look at.
it just has FERC
Yeah.
stuff in it, so.
Right, it's just the mail folder that circulates if you want.
If you want to look at it.
Yeah, goes around the
Yeah.
board. If they want on the agenda, they can mark it for the next agenda.
That was a
Okay,
nice
I'll
site.
read it on the way back.
It's
We
just,
Do it.
We change it over each meeting for, it's just your mail that doesn't get on the agenda.
So David's willing to do the clerk. Anybody else interested?
Did
All
did
right.
he say that, or did you?
I hadn't said that, but okay.
What are you doing, David, or do you want?
Absolutely, I'll do it.
okay.
Thank you.
Certainly.
It's not a tough job. I was able to do it.
Right up my alley then. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a
Okay.
good newbie one.
Yeah. All right.
Got to vote that slate?
Anybody else interested? If nobody else is interested, do we vote? Yeah.
Yeah, you vote them.
Okay.
Vote the slate.
You can
Oh,
vote
that's
all
right, because
three.
they're nominations.
Okay. All those in favor of David as clerk?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Welcome.
And
Thank
Did
you.
you do chair and
Opposed?
vice? You got to do chair and vice chair, too.
No, we did it when
Did you
writing.
do the vote?
Yeah,
we
we
didn't
voted
actually
in-
vote. We did it
No,
on
you got to
paper.
vote
A motion.
Oh, we
Make a
did.
motion
Oh,
to
yeah.
accept the vote as counted
for chair.
for chair and for vice chair.
Second.
And so you're,
All,
any discussion?
any discussion on that? Or, no? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Okay, well, let's get moving on scheduled appointments. We have Laura Dubin, Community Preservation Committee,
Lara.
surtax tax bill insert request.
Always nice to see you.
So yes, Laura Dubin, I am the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. And I'm going to pass around, if you take one of those. This is a copy. The CPC would like to put out more understanding of what the CPA surcharge is that's on the bill, and just more information. I read 5 warrant articles at this last meeting, and I want people to understand where that money is coming from, and understand how we use it and how it stays in the town. And it's a very special sort of legislature. So the committee came up with the idea of including this piece of paper with the next tax bill that goes out, which is basically, as it says, it's just understanding the CPA surcharge on your tax bill, because when you get that tax bill, it says it right there, but there's no real explanation about it. And that is the purpose of this. It's kind of like the first part of, just us sort of building up information for the community to understand that money. And I'm here, we know it's okay to include it in the tax bill, but we do need to have y'all vote yes that we can do that. So I'm here to answer any questions.
And this tax surcharge, if I was reading it right, that was voted in at town meeting in 2008?
Yes,
Yeah,
at a
okay.
town vote, it was a vote.
Okay, yeah.
It was a November vote that it was in. And when it was first voted in, it was voted in as a 3% surcharge.
Mhm.
And then the following year, it got voted back down to a 0.5% surcharge.
So to change it from the current 0.5, we'd have to,
Well, you would, at town meeting, we'd have to
Yeah.
have a warrant article that
Yeah.
asks for permission to put it to a vote,
Mhm.
and then there would be a vote. And we did attempt this a few years ago, and it did not go through. And I think a big part of it is understanding. People see surcharge, it is a tax, but they don't understand how it's actually like a tax on a portion of the tax. So we're trying to get that information up. And if we were at the 3%, or even if what we had hoped to do before was go up to 1%, and if we had been at that 1%, we'd be getting basically, twice as much money into our funds, so that we could grant more money to projects and to the projects that move forward. But this is just about, again, this is about educating people about the information.
I think it's a great idea. Love information to people. I would like to see, and I've just now looked at it, so it may be hidden on here that I haven't quite
Absolutely.
read, but an understanding of what your guidelines are for spending it, right? So it says on here, I see for upgrades, restoration of parks, playgrounds, all that kind of stuff, but maybe just a sentence about like who decides how it's spent, because I think you guys have a committee and they come in and they
Absolutely. And this is the part where it was tough trying to figure out how much information, because we don't want it to go into more than one page or go into the other
I hear
page and
you.
everything. Absolutely. And our hope is that reading it, this will give people enough information. If you go to, our website, on the town website, there is going to be more of that information there. But even just to answer your question, the committee, we are guided by very strict rulings by the CPA legislature that the state sets. So we have a whole guideline in terms of deciding whether something is applicable. Does it meet the basic criteria first that the state sets? And then the second criteria is like, we're deciding, how does this benefit the town? This is the town's money. How does this benefit the town? And every fall we do have a CPA informational forum where I do a lovely slideshow and answer all these questions, and we're always available for those questions. So I can certainly see if there's a way to put that on here, add something in there, but it gets, there's just the main categories, and there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, no, I hear you, and I'm not trying to second guess, because I know a lot of work went into this. But there might be a possibility, so I see the Community Preservation Act or CPA is a state law that gives, maybe if we had a link or a QR that people could go to the legislation or something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We can add that in. It's communitypreservation.org. All the information you ever want is on there, and we could add it down at the bottom where we have questions Right now, it's questions for us and linked to our thing, but we can also say, also visit communitypreservation.org for more specific information about the legislation.
Yeah,
Okay, I can take that note.
thank you.
Maybe just at the bottom is maybe just format that a little bit differently so it sticks out, because the guide that you're talking about is multiple pages. Having had to go through it and sat through your wonderful presentation, maybe just put for a guide and a list of all projects funded so far, maybe just format that a little bit differently so it's bolder or boxed out or something.
Oh, so just like that information,
Yeah.
available information.
Yeah,
on
just
the
so it
town
kind of-
part of the website, it pops a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be, that way you don't have to
Yeah.
go through and edit anything. And then the only question that I had was, I'm stating the obvious, but I think this is where I got confused in the past when I first moved to Northfield, is, so if you pay your taxes in April 1st and October 1st, this fee is automatically taken out of that.
Yes.
It's not, and I know you made a note here that it's not, it doesn't raise the tax rate, but I know that's where I wasn't clear. So maybe if there's a,
Yeah,
that just by paying your taxes, you automatically pay this, so you don't have to worry
right.
about.
Well, which is why like including
Yeah.
it in the tax bill, and that's also why
Yep.
we have the tax bill calculation example.
Yeah,
there.
no, it was super helpful.
So you understand that how does that 0.5% work with the tax?
Yep.
And to understand
Yep.
the fact that, which a lot of people don't understand, that before we even, it's a tax on the tax, which is what's really confusing. It's not a tax on just your property tax. We take your property numbers, we subtract $100,000, and then
Yep.
we take the regular tax on that, and
Yep.
then we take the 0.5%
Yep.
off of that. Which is why we were like, if we laid out that example, and then and then other surcharge examples. So if you just want to kind of guess, like, oh, where is my home value in that? What is that actually saying?
No, that was super helpful.
That's the hard part too, for a lot of people to kind of understand.
And the CPA, I did it on my own paper.
Yeah.
Underline, the CPA does not raise the tax rate. So, I mean, I would suggest
Okay.
making things stand out that you're interested in.
I'm very happy to do
Bold
that.
that.
In case you get a lot of emails. Right.
Well, I'd be happy to get emails, because then I can answer
Yeah.
questions and start conversations.
No, and you're really good at answering them.
So it's probably a fluctuating number. What's the amount that you folks collect that you can spend the following year, each year? Do you know?
I'd
Roughly?
have to. Well, it really varies. I don't think I have that with me. But you can look that information up on communitypreservation.org. If you go to communitypreservation.org, and there's a heading for information about towns, it's out there. Anyone can look it up. You can just choose Northfield, and it will show every year since 2009 how much we've gotten from the state, and it shows how much we have collected from the town. And that's also where every year I have to do a specific report where I report in what projects did we spend the money on, what projects were canceled, updates, how those things happen. So everything is public record and out there to be accessed. So if you go and look at that, and it's usually part of my PowerPoint where I share those numbers.
And then this money builds if you don't spend, right?
Yes, this is our money. This does not go anywhere. Anything that we don't spend, it just moves forward into, we always have it. It's sitting somewhere collecting interest. It's the one kind of budget line in the town that's a little tricky, because we don't just clear out at the end of the fiscal year. It just rolls over. It just continues to building. So all that money that we have, for example, we probably have about $64,000, for example, sitting in the affordable housing fund. As at the warrant articles I one of the read was like we have to specifically take a certain amount for each one, and the rest just goes into undesignated. We've only ever had one project request money from affordable housing, and so all that money there, it just keeps building up and building up and building up. It's always ours. If a project comes under budget, they don't spend that money still comes back to us, and we move it back into what we call our undesignated funds, so it is sitting there waiting for the next project. It stays in Northfield.
Okay. Thank you.
Is it a matching? How there was another sentence on here that you underlined.
Yes, so because there's two sources of our fund. One is straight from the community with this tax on the surcharge on the tax, property tax. And then there's the statewide CPA trust funds. For any towns that are doing the CPA, they're getting money from the state. And how much money you get depends on what your percentage is. If we had 3% in that 1 year, we had 3% matching, we got full matching funds. Whatever we gathered from the town, we got exactly that much from the state. Once you drop down to anything below 3%, you only get a partial. So at 0.5%, we're getting like a 20%. It varies from year to year, between 20 to 30% matching funds. So that's what this money is, and that's basically, so this is money we're getting from the state that we're only getting because we're a CPA. If we did not have CPA, that money would be going to other states. And that money, and we explain where does that money come from? It's from the Department of Revenue, from the Registry of Deeds. Anyone who goes in and does business at the Registry of Deeds puts that money in. That money is reserved for CPA, for state matching. So, and if we had so if we raised our thing to 1%, that would mean we'd be, they would be matching twice as much money. So we'd pull more money from the state that otherwise goes to other towns.
But you said that once you hit 1%, it's a full match. When it's sub
3%.
1%. Oh, 3%.
3%. You got to go all in. You can't go higher than 3%. If you go all in, you get all the matching state money. Anything below that is going to be between 20 to 30%. Most towns are around do like 1.5 to 2%. We and one other town were the only two. There's only two towns, including us, that do 0.5%.
And we asked for the higher percentage too
A few years ago,
at a town meeting. And it got shot down.
and we had the vote, and we asked for 1%, and it did not pass at the November vote.
Yeah.
And it's education about people. It's always a hard time. Taxes are always going up, but also the legalese required to get it back up to 1% as it read on the ballot was very confusing. I knew exactly what it was about, and I had a hard time following all the legalese to figure out what am I voting yes for.
I remember that. That's
think
where I was confused.
A lot of people, I think, just didn't vote because they did not understand what they were voting for. So this is a tiny step towards possibly some better understanding.
So maybe we should look at that for like the next annual town meeting, if we can get a handle on the communication.
It's something the committee we talk about each
Every
year.
year.
When we meet again, since we're past the warrant article, we don't meet much in the summer, and the fall we get up to really start gearing our whole process again, and we bring that up. We say, how do we feel? What do we think the feel of the town is? What are the taxes looking like? How are people feeling?
Yeah.
We, right after COVID, it was hard for everybody, so we certainly weren't going to try to bring it up again. So we do consider that again each fall. Is this the year we try again? Or do we want to do more time educating?
Yeah. Well, the more people know, the less scared they are to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't know, then you're just like,
right. If you don't know, you're like, okay,
not.
I'm just.
Yeah.
You see the word tax, and you're like, no, I don't want more taxes. But if you can understand how it's really used beneficially for the town, and how because of the way we're doing it, we actually get money from the state and it's all local decisions. The CPC vets the process, but then it's the town people have the final say on do we spend that money. That's what those warrant articles are about.
And it's kind of like the ARPA committee got together. There was a grant, so that's different, but the ARPA committee got together and discussed, I think B was on that committee, right?
Yep, still
and
am.
discussed like how the money would be spent and stuff like that. And you guys do a version of that with the applications that come in.
Oh,
right?
very much so. Like I said, first we just to see, is it eligible? Does it meet the CPA, the state legislature's very specific guidelines? And once we determine that, we bring people in and then we talk and we're like, is this the best use of this money? We want to feel really good about bringing it to the town to say, yes, we're behind this. We think this is a valuable way to spend this money that's been put aside specifically for these purposes.
Okay.
So I went on cpa.org, and then you click on data bank and you click on information on individual CPA communities, and there's kind of a list. But I think that our town website has better information, because I notice it says, come here to look at projects that were funded so far.
Yes, I have a typed up thing. I have it that's a PDF that's easy to access, much easier than trying to look up, you can look up the project database, but that's on the website. The communitypreservation.org website is really great just to see like, well, how much did that count? How much did we bring in? How much was the state match this year? And what are other towns bringing in? How do we compare it to those towns?
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve including this information paper with the tax bills.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Good job,
Great,
Larry.
great
Well
idea.
said.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Good
much.
Thank
idea.
you. All right. We're skipping over the next one. It's an executive session for later. Citizens' concerns. I don't see any citizens. So, review and approval of warrants. 5/15/2024 payroll warrant of $89,432.66.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Just looks like the police had extra special detail or something. That's the only thing I could
Yeah.
see that was like a little bit more than typical.
Yeah. Okay. If nobody else, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. A motion to approve the 5/15/2024 vendor warrant of $136,635.08, which includes health insurance, community compact, sewer engineering, Article 5, STM fiscal year '24.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I didn't have a chance to read it.
All right. All right. We have a review and approval of minutes from 4/30/2024.
Yes, and I just want to announce that I passed the town secretary quiz for the minutes. Lara should be Laura, so Lara for both Laura Fries and Laura Rooney should be Laura, Laura. And then I think it was Heath that seconded the water quality motion at the bottom of page 3. That's all I could find.
I had a couple things that I wanted to include. On the current part on the Northfield Golf Course says, review of decibel levels, bass speakers, and soundboard standard in last year's application to be followed this year in compliance with the town's bylaws. I'd like to, but I specifically asked about that the decibel level be less than 100 decibel, that there be no bass speakers, and that the soundboards be in place for all performances, and that she agreed that that was specifically going to be included, even though it hadn't been in the application because it was in the previous. But those are words that I asked, and so I'd like those included. And also, I would actually really like to include I commented on the really great improvement of 2023 over 2022, and I thank the golf course for listening to the neighborhood and working to be good neighbors.
So what's the specific edit? I'm looking at it. Let's see what page that is. Page 3?
I don't know, I'm looking at my notes, not at the, where it says
Yep.
review of decibel levels.
Top of page 3.
Mhm. I would like for it to say last year's application, and then write, including the decibel level of under 100 decibels, no bass speakers, and soundboards in place for all performances, because those are questions I specifically asked. And then I would like to include,
Yep. I'm just looking at the edit. So review of decibel levels, how about if we put in parentheses less than 100?
yes,
Okay. And then so we could say review included decibel levels instead of review of. Review included decibel levels, parentheses, less than 100, no bass speakers, and what about the soundboard?
The soundboards will, it says soundboards will be available in the
And
application.
availability of
But
soundboards.
No, that they should be in place for all performances. I clarified that during the meeting, and she said she had intended to put that.
Yeah,
and then
I'm
it
just
wasn't
editing.
being-
I'm taking
right?
what you're saying and editing. So review included decibel levels, parentheses, less than 100, no bass speakers,
Yep.
and
Soundboards in place for all performances.
correct. There you go. There's your
Okay.
edit. Okay, and then what's the next one?
It feels weird talking about myself in the third person.
I know.
But Kearns
Go ahead.
commented on the improvement of 2023 noise levels over 2022, and thanked the golf course for listening and working to be good neighbors. Listening to the
Yep,
citizens.
that's good. Just what you said I thought was good. Just from an editor standpoint.
Mhm. And then there's one further down about the town. Oh, this was about the question and answer session. And it says, discussion on being able to ask questions at town meetings. Questions are allowed at town meetings for debate. That was there. But
I'm sorry, where are you?
I'm in, I don't know what page it is. I'm looking at my own notes. Hang on, I can open up.
What's the topic and we'll find it.
The question and answer, the informational open house discussion. It was probably near the end. Do you have a,
Yep, got it. Okay, go ahead. What are you saying?
where it says discussion on being able to ask questions at town meeting, questions are allowed at town meeting for debate. But I'd like to
Where it says.
add,
question.
but they won't necessarily be answered, because that's the whole point. And that was reiterated, that's been reiterated at the beginning of every town meeting, and we talked about it during that meeting. And then after,
Oh, gee. Hang on one second.
Sandra, do you know where I am? Questions are allowed at town meeting for debate is where you had written, and I wanted to add, but they won't necessarily be answered.
Right, I got that.
Okay. And then attended the Finance Committee question and answer session. And I'd like to add that there were 5 attendees, or maybe 6, because B was also an attendee. I thought you were
No, there were
running
more
it.
than that. You weren't there, I was there.
No, okay.
I
So
would just
Was
leave.
that even discussed at the
it
meeting?
was, it absolutely was,
The
because I
number?
mentioned
Okay.
it. Yeah.
You mentioned,
remember
yeah,
the
you
number.
mentioned it, but you didn't go.
And I think it's
so-
relevant because there's a differential on what people are showing up for. And then
It's a
the
lot
last
more than
one,
5.
well, they were
I was there.
Not the FinCom one.
the FinCom one.
And somebody left,
Oh.
2 people had to leave at different points too, so.
I thought you were talking about a different meeting. I apologize.
So we can correct that just with the number. And then,
I'm not, I didn't run it, I attended and I was late and a couple of people left, so I would just leave that one alone.
okay.
I know you're making your point, you're making it now. Let's just get on with the edits, and if these are
Okay.
gonna be lengthy, let's write them
They're
out
not
and
going to
just,
be lengthy. I've got one more.
let's distribute them.
So, and then the last one is about, Kearns felt a presentation-based organized session would be overly controlled and not long enough, so I wanted to change those words to presentation-based. And then instead of having it be Kearns session, I'd like it to say the open houses Kearns has coordinated in the town auditorium, because it wasn't about me, it was the open house that I coordinated with folks who were in the town.
But not on the,
Yeah, all on the, you
Yeah.
know, you were on one, and the whole select board was invited.
yeah, oh, the original one, the special one.
To both of them.
The
The
special
select
one.
board was invited to all of them, and the people, and the,
We can't go unless we post it. we can't have a quorum where we're gonna discuss stuff that we discussed.
Right, but we had enough days before that to have decided whether we were
Well,
gonna post it.
regardless, let's just finish up with the
Right.
edits, because we're
The
just
open
doing.
houses, Kearns had coordinated in the town auditorium instead of Kearns' session, because it wasn't my session.
You got that, Sandra?
No.
So it says Kearns' session is scheduled for Sunday, May 5th. Instead of the words Kearns' session, I would like it to say, the open house Kearns had coordinated in the town auditorium. Because the point is that it was an informational open house, and we discussed that and talked about it.
Just give the edit.
Mhm.
We're not discussing like, just give the edit so that we
I
can
did
actually.
just give the edit.
Yeah.
Did you
So
hear
we-
it? The open
No, because
house-
then you started explaining it.
house,
Don't explain it,
Kearns.
just give the edit.
Open house
please.
Kearns had coordinated in the town auditorium.
Perfect. Thank you.
All set, Sandra?
Yeah, I move that we approve the April 30th, 2024 minutes as amended.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Um,
I'll abstain.
I'd like to mention too, I think in the future, especially where the minutes, we seem to have a lot of revisions in that.
Mhm.
I think I'm gonna ask,
To
in
send
a
it.
future meeting, we'll vote to have your revisions sent to other select board members ahead of time, so that we can streamline the process and not take as long to
Okay.
make a few edits.
Thank you.
Good idea.
So,
Chair, I have a question. I'm not sure, we got in our packet the town meeting, the description of the town meeting, and there was
that's later.
Okay,
All right, interim select board meetings. It wasn't,
Annual town meeting.
the annual town meeting is, yeah, okay. Meetings and events attended by select board members. Lee?
You want me to go?
Sure.
I attended the presentation by West Mass. I attended a planning board hearing. That was as a historical person. And then I've had a few meetings and phone calls and emails regarding the FERC DEP, as in Department of Environmental Protection, for first light processes, and we have that on the agenda for tonight. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keith, anything?
Do not have anything.
I voted. And then planning board, I also went to the solar bylaw hearing, part of it. I had to leave early. And then economic development, an amazing, wonderful meeting. And then tree 50th, tree planting, planting 15 trees out of the greater 50 that that have already been done.
Oh,
Okay. Alrighty, and I had the town meeting, and I met with 3 representatives from the DEP at the wastewater treatment plant today. They did a quick visit. I found out about it, so I stopped down. They just talked with the chief operator about what was going on there, and that was it. It wasn't an inspection, it was just a informational meeting. So, okay, let's move on to the town administrator's update.
First one I wanted to bring to your attention is our accounting person, professional, has received her town accountant certification, Erin Degnan. Over the past 3 to 4 years, Erin has attended the state training classes. She's taken all the exams to achieve her state certification. She's been certified by the Massachusetts Municipal Auditors and Accountant Association. We got a great letter. She is one of 8 members in the state to be recognized and certified as a governmental accountant this year. 8.
wow.
And on July 1st, Erin will officially become our town accountant, replacing the contractor we've been using satisfactorily. It's not an issue for the past 3 years, but this, I think, is a wonderful example of growing our own team in-house. It was always our goal to give her that time to attend these trainings and certifications and work towards becoming the town accountant. And it's happened, and we figure after July 1st, when she comes in to be appointed, then we'll all get to, technically vote her then as an
So
appointment.
we won't be using Pete in that from now on.
Yeah, we did put a little bit of money in the budget for some consulting with Pete, because there's gonna be a transition, especially when we go to like close out the year or next year when we go to
Okay.
certify free cash. We wanted to have some
I was wondering
available
about
funds.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
no, we thought about that.
All right.
We put a little bit of extra money in to have an assistant to help her do some of the work that she does, which is the data entry. We don't need to pay the accountant to do the data entry work. And it also gives us another person to get trained on, for example, payroll, because the more people you have cross-trained, obviously,
Yeah.
the safer the whole system runs. But she came on board as just having graduated with her associates from GCC in accounting, and was new to municipal accounting, and we've worked her on up, and now she's actually town accountant here and in another town.
Cool. That's amazing.
So we'll be looking for an assistant for her then too.
Yes, but
Okay.
we're also talking about possibly, I have a meeting possibly with the finance team, because we also lost our assistant collector, that maybe it would make sense for that to be one person. So, because they're two small part-time jobs.
Yeah.
And they would remain part-time because neither of them are funded to create a 20-hour week position, but it might make sense it'd be more attractive to somebody if they had more than 6 hours here and 6 hours there. And there's ebbs and flows in the workforce between tax collecting and accounting that might make it attractive when one is not busy in one role, then the other role might be busier. So anyway, that's a discussion I wanted to allow the people in those, who are the supervisors, to have,
Okay, thank you.
think about.
Yeah.
Awesome. How long did it take her to do all this training?
Close to 4 years. You go every year to the annual conference, and you take the
Wow.
trainings and you sit for the, yes.
Can we as a group, send our official congratulations and recognition to Erin? Can we do a,
Do we do that when we appoint her, or do we can congratulate her now?
Yeah, I mean, certainly on taking the exam and getting her,
and being one of 8?
it's
There
pretty
are
impressive.
towns,
It's
just
tough.
from a FERCog point of view on the council, accounting has been a challenge for a lot of different towns, so I think this is quite a coup
Okay.
for us and for
Put that
her.
down at the recognition
Yeah.
for service.
Just wanted to give you a quick on one-stop grants since they've opened. I'm going to have Leslie come and talk to you about when we submit. But the grants that we're kind of working right now, she's working with Ty and Bond on some wastewater, our consultant for wastewater, on some infrastructure grants that will be submitted through the One-Stop program. She's working on the narrative parts and the town pieces, and they're doing a lot of the technical work. So there is a potential, there's a wastewater infrastructure grant that we're going to put in through One Stop. She's working with a local business owner on an underutilized property rehabilitation grant. This grant helps fund work with current structures to help revitalize a property for public benefit, but it's a underutilized private storefront property to bring that business.
Oh.
So she works with a property owner on helping to get this restaurant open.
Oh.
So that's one of the grants. It's and then the last one that possibly will be going in is a rural downtown district management implementation grant. We've been working with FERCog and the BSC group. They were a consultant that the FERCog's had for a couple of years. They worked with 3 towns, Shelburne, Turners, and Northfield, in evaluating the capacity needs to implement sustainable downtown management models. So we worked with them a while back. They did some interviewing, they did all this, and now they're coming to fruition on what that might look at. And this application would be a joint application with the other participating municipalities. The idea being some sort of partnership or maybe regional organization to help manage models for sustainable downtowns in smaller towns. So those are the 3 that she's working on at the moment, and I told her I'd like her to come back in later in June when they kind of go in to kind of present a little bit more in depth. So that's that. The museums on Main Street is also a grant, and that has gone in. Leslie worked with Misha on this project from the library. It's called Voices and Votes Northfield. And after all the success of the 350th activities around the history and culture of Northfield, the residents really showed their excitement for history and community involvement. And this grant would bring a program that is sponsored by the Mass Foundation for Humanities to Northfield. It would be hosted here in the town hall, but in collaboration with the library. They would be developing, the library will be developing 6 public programs and the physical exhibits in town hall, so they'll be running some programming as well at the library. There's other collaborations they're hopefully planning with the schools, the Historical Society, and the theme is voting. Showcases how voices and votes are different in smaller communities. There's some showcasing of how history of voting and democracy is different in New England. Other topics like Northfield's first woman voter, or when apparently Teddy Roosevelt campaigned in Northfield. But it's a great opportunity to study the history of Northfield and to encourage community members to become involved in town government.
Yay.
So that grant has gone in. We're pretty hopeful, and they've had to submit 3 or 4 different date ranges, so we're not exactly sure when that'll happen yet. We're hoping sometime over late summer or early into fall. So we'll find out because they manage that with other communities. So
Before you move on to the next one, I have questions, if you don't mind. Is that
Yeah.
okay, Chair? Underutilized structures property, is that with, who's the consultant? Is there a consulting company that's?
no, we're putting in the grant.
Oh.
So right now, all we're putting in is that we have an underutilized property. We're working with the business owner, and we'd like to get funded to do parts of the project that are publicly eligible for funding. We don't fund everything,
Right.
but there is some funding available to try and get businesses up and running that are in underutilized properties.
So the grant is for a consultant or is for actual work?
It's for actual work.
Okay. And then the Rural Downtown District Management Group, you said it's coming to fruition. What does that mean? What's the fruition?
They've been working on this for a year or so. The FERCOG has been the lead agency, and they have a subgroup, BSC group, who did. Did you attend the one at the library? Were you there?
Oh, was that BSC?
That was the group when
Oh,
they
I didn't
were
realize that was-
meeting with business owners.
Yep.
But they did this in
Yeah, Patricia was
Shelburne
there
here,
before she got
Shelburne
on your
here, and
committee.
Turner's, and they're trying to look at small towns, and they're trying to come up with, everybody tries to reinvent themselves. Everybody's trying to figure out how to manage their own.
Yeah.
But they're saying there may be some commonalities that might help communities band together, and it's a capacity thing. It's very difficult to have the capacity to do a lot of the work that's involved in
Actually-
this. So they're trying to look at some strategies. I haven't seen the final. The final work is a meeting we're having next week, and then hopefully that will result in some actual implementation. But it only has about another week and a half, so we're hoping that we'll have time to get a grant in for that, to take that project into implementation.
Was that the meeting, this is, I'm looking over at Sarah too, was that the, you weren't there, but Jinx and
And Howard?
Steve
They might have
Stoya and were
Yes.
there. And Jinx came up with the Hastings, came up with the idea for food trucks.
No, I don't think it was that specific.
She mentioned that.
She might have,
Yeah.
but there was
Anyhow.
a woman there who was
And Patricia was there before she got on the
Leslie
committee.
Cameron was there,
Yeah,
From the
and there was a
winery.
woman who was had a home-based health
that was
business.
Patricia,
Yeah.
who just got on
So,
the,
yes,
yeah.
it was that meeting.
Yep, okay, gotcha. Just FYI,
Yes.
Can I ask a question about
Overlap.
the underutilized structure
Yeah.
grant? Did the town approach the owner, or did the owner approach the town about the grant?
Well, we went through several things that had been applied for through the storefront that we weren't able to fund. So that we had several applicants through that, and we looked at the rules under the grant to see if we said we couldn't fund that with our storefront money, what might be applicable, because this grant
yeah.
also has rules. So we took, and we had multiple applicants of business owners in town for the storefront. And we funded multiple different projects, but there were some things that were not applicable through what we felt the storefront or ARPA programming, but that would be applicable through this grant. So and there was one business owner in particular who had applied for things that were not fundable through our storefront improvement program.
So then you said restaurant, so is it this one, or is it the one up at the end of town? can you say?
It's closer to this building.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a,
We have 2 vacant restaurants, so.
no, it's not the pizza place.
Okay.
I mean, he hasn't
Which isn't
been in touch with
vacant.
us, he hasn't been part
It's
of
not
it.
vacant,
It's actually not vacant. And,
technically.
Current liquor license.
Right.
Yeah.
yes, has a current liquor license.
And also just FYI, to tie it back to ARPA, the storefront improvement program came out of the ARPA program.
Right.
No, I remember that program.
Yeah, oh, okay.
This was just
So,
new, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it made sense to look at those projects that were unfundable through the ARPA storefront project and look at who had applied, who had taken the interest, who bothered to fill out an application, who had applied for things. We were able to fund most of them, like, because they were
yeah.
real storefront.
yeah.
But there's been a lot of public call for a restaurant in town.
Mhm.
There's a couple locations, or a location that has been a restaurant.
Mhm.
And it just made sense, since there was some application made to
Great.
doing work in that building that was not fundable, we got through the program, but would meet the criteria potentially of a one-stop grant.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to just circle back because I want to make sure I understand. So the Rural Downtown District Management Group, the fruition is going to be an organization of multiple towns, or is going to be a consulting?
They're gonna, no, I think they're gonna give recommendations on a study, and the idea is that one stop might help lead to an implementation if that's something that comes out of that seems feasible.
Okay. So the fruition is a set of recommendations.
Right, they're trying to pull together
That'll go to multiple
a map, a guideline, a guidance to talk about how would small communities be able to do similar things instead of everybody trying to reinvent the wheel all the time
Yeah.
in small towns that have limited capacity and administrative capacity. So
Right.
things don't come to fruition. How can we build a
This town specializes in
how
this.
can we
this
build
one.
right,
Yeah,
but how can we build building blocks so that towns can follow more model to try and help with administrative capacity on
That's great.
those kinds of things.
And I have one question about the library town stories.
Mhm.
Is that like a permanent thing? How long does it last?
I actually have the application, so it's to Mass Humanities, and let me see how many weeks it is. So it looks like it's about 6 weeks,
That sounds right.
so probably a program each week would be part of them. So,
And is it a national? I mean,
no, it's
the
Mass
theme with-
Humanities.
So it's mass, and it's and
It's part of their Museums on Main Street exhibit.
yeah.
And they're doing Voices on and Votes, Democracy in America. That's the theme this year that they're doing.
Okay, cool. That sounds like a fun one. I think that our the school children and homeschoolers who like to make projects out of things might enjoy that, especially.
And lastly, I just wanted to report a little bit on the May 1st Business Park listening session. That was the one that you attended.
Oh, the Mass West one?
Right. We did put that on the website. The presentation from
Oh, good.
from that session is on the Grant the Development Director's page. So if people want to see that presentation. It doesn't have answers. It has a lot of questions because that's what they were leading us through. And that in the future, they will be coming back with the culmination of that session. But I did want people to know that if they really wanted to see that presentation and what they walked people through it, we did post it.
Was that only on Main Street?
No,
Because I saw the map and it seemed to.
they picked, they had a logic about how far off you would go. So there's, they looked at the main business areas that we were looking at, which is predominantly Route 10 going this way. They looked at traffic, they looked at how many, and then they said, and you'll go back so many, a half mile or whatever off, so they could technically look up and down side streets, but generally speaking, if you're trying to develop a business district or business, you're not gonna go 5 miles. It just, people don't travel it.
Right.
But that
closer
was,
to 91 is better as far as, at least for business parks. The closer, that's the thing that we've heard over
we
and
weren't
over
really
again.
doing a traditional business park.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of
That was
talk.
part of the discussion too,
Right.
was not traditional business park, so
Yes.
what do you call it? And they indicated that's been a problem for other towns as well. And so they solicited questions from the audience about what to call it. And I think the thing that came up was hub.
Right.
No, but we didn't
It could
settle
be-
in on
It
it.
could be small local people. It could be with a restaurant or two with
Yeah,
a
like-
multi-mixed use kind of thing. They're not thinking traditional those buildings, business park.
Just and it
That's
could be
not-
multiple too. That was the other thing. So
Yeah.
and we
Yeah.
also they also used the word clusters too, which
Clusters.
we kind of backed away from.
Instead of
so.
just driving through a
FYI.
Butler building park, we didn't, it's not that.
Therein lies the challenge.
Right. So, but we did put that on, and I think it was very successful. I think there was a range of participants and voices, some of whom I hadn't seen at some of these meetings before. Like I said, it's on the development page, and they are
Yeah,
currently
it was-
putting together
It was a mixed
the
group.
results and exploring some of the comments and recommendations over the next couple of months, and then we'll meet after that to see their recommendations and talk about next steps. And part of what they're supposed to then help us in the scope of work is, what are the kinds of things you would do to fund it? Like, how do you build a coalition to fund it? How do you, so there's a lot of pieces yet to come. This is really just the beginning of that project.
Okay. All right,
Thanks.
let's get down to business. I didn't see any paperwork on the fire department, chief succession policies and procedures.
Haven't received any.
Because he gave a date of June 1, so that's the
Did he?
date that he gave. Yep.
Okay.
And I said it at a previous meeting also. And he's meeting with, I guess he's on, our chief of, the fire chief is on I can't remember the name of it, but he's up to actually be president of the
Mass-
Rural Mass
No,
Fire.
It's Western.
Okay, so
Western
we're gonna
Mass.
table this thing, because we don't have anything.
Well,
Yeah.
at some point, you do want to talk about succession planning
Yeah,
yourselves. I mean, that's
well, I mean,
still an issue.
we keep delaying the succession.
Yep.
And
I think that's the point.
that's the point of it.
Right. I can give you one little update that I did on that, and I think this is part of it. The request for the chief's extension was submitted following town meeting to both the Senate and Representative's office. Obviously, they're very busy right now. They're finishing their budget. And then they actually have a session for several months. They have some callbacks where they try to push through small, non-controversial things. So this could come up then. They said they'll do the best to move it through, but it's going to take months. Because first it has to go to legal review, it gets put in the legal format that you see for a bill. Then it gets sent to them. Then they actually send it to the subcommittees, who may make suggestions, and they'll keep me posted on the progress. But again, last time, and from Representative Whips, actually she called me, said, yeah, I said, well, last time it was November. She said, yeah.
I'd like to, before we do discuss the policies, procedures, and chief succession, I'd like to have some info from them myself. I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I don't want to have a meeting on discussing the chief succession, the policies and procedures, and then they give their stuff and we discuss it all over again without knowing what they're presenting. I don't know how, anybody else have any feelings on that?
I did send an email to the chief last week to ask if he had any updates, because this was going on the agenda, but I didn't.
But he had already said that it was going to be.
I'm not sure when that happened. I'm sorry if
Well,
I
but
missed it.
I said it in meeting because I had, when everything was being
So
finalized.
was it a conversation with you, or was
Nope,
it when he was here?
in an open meeting.
Because I remember the last time he was here, he said he was meeting with
I don't
the
remember
gentleman who was the lawyer for the Fire Chiefs Association,
Yeah.
and they were
Oh,
very
let me-
close to finishing the
Let me clarify,
review.
B, it was in a conversation because we had done a subcommittee. I don't know if it
you
was
too?
officially a subcommittee, and
Oh.
Heath wasn't present for the conversation, but you couldn't make it that time, and so you said, you guys go ahead.
Okay.
And so we talked about the specifics, and then I came, and when I talked about the meetings I'd had, I said that it was, that he had given us that date. So
I would
I'm just clarifying.
Okay, that's fine.
That
And
was what was
I'll
said.
speak to him when he's here. I
Sure.
would just very much like it if a department head who gets emailed questions actually responds to my emails with those
You would
answers.
expect that.
Because then I wouldn't have done this route.
Okay.
But I didn't get a response prior to posting time like I asked.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think that we need to make sure that we do is on purpose, intentionally, get our town lawyer in touch with the organization lawyer that they're using. And I know that it's been I don't know, I've spoken, both groups are frustrated by that, so maybe we could do it on intentionally somehow. I don't know how to do that. Can we set up a meeting?
Have they submitted anything? They haven't submitted anything to the town.
I think
We'd have it reviewed.
there was a step before that, which would be they would actually submit their latest thing
Okay.
that we had talked about several months ago. So I think the chief and the department head actually needs to give a formal update to the select board, and then we can make a decision on if legal's involved or somebody else to actually get those done.
Well, I know that there's a lawyer for that org.
That's
Right.
fine, but he's the department head, he needs to raise it with the select board. He's putting you in the position of having to represent the discussions, and so we're getting it secondhand. And no offense, I mean,
Until
I-
No,
they
that's
come in-
fine,
until
but I
they
think
come
that-
in, we're not gonna make a decision.
I hear
Yeah.
you, but I just want to clarify that the board
Yep.
asked me to do that,
It's
asked
clear.
us to do that.
No, I know, it's,
And then he couldn't be there, and he said it was fine for us to meet. And so it's not me stepping out. This is what I was asked to do by the
No,
board.
I think we had moved on from that. You guys had presented at a meeting, and then I think he was sitting here saying that he was going to meet with this lawyer, and at that
Yeah.
point, we were expecting an imminent
yeah.
document that never came, so I sent him an email and said,
I
after
think you
town
guys
meeting
did
succession. and
Yeoman's effort,
he didn't
and
respond.
you had laid out a schedule that we're well past at this point, so he needs to come in and explain that.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Franklin Regional Council of Government,
Oh, yeah.
Public Health Nursing Services Contract.
It's right there in the red folder.
Red folder, yeah. Yeah, this is similar to last year, where we contract out the nursing services to FERCog.
Yeah, last year was when they did all their research, if you
Right, this
remember.
is
Yeah, we did all
the
the
annual
research
renewal.
last year, and there was a large amount of support from the senior center here for the nursing program, for the FERCog nurse coming in.
Yeah.
And the Board of Health approved it, and I believe they approved it this year at their last
Yes,
meeting.
this is the
Yeah.
annual renewal to continue,
Okay.
and they
So this is
supported,
just a renewal of it.
yeah, and the
And they
senior
already
center
signed
wanted
it, too.
everyone to know
David
that they
already
supported
Does
it as
anybody
well.
want to look at this quick, or did
I already looked at it.
I've already looked at it?
I looked at it also.
Okay.
I think it's.
So I'll entertain a motion to, have me sign this agreement
For the public health
for the
nursing,
public health.
nursing
service.
services contract with
Yeah.
FERCog?
Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I didn't see how long is it for? Is it just a yearly one, or is
I
it
think it's
longer
3
than that?
years.
Yes,
3
3
years.
years.
3 years,
Okay.
yeah.
And if you don't approve it, it keeps going anyway. That's how they
Right.
continued from last year.
Yeah,
And just so you know, actually, it's in the budget that was approved, so we know what the assessment
Yeah.
is, and it was
it was
funded.
in there.
Good, yeah.
Okay, great.
Okay, if no further discussion, all those in favor?
Aye,
Aye.
yay.
Okay. I'll sign this.
The senior center will be happy.
Is the
about that.
assessment fixed over the 3-year term?
No, they'll give you, it doesn't change much, but it's reassessed every year, because it might have to do with changes in services.
Thank
Do
you.
we go and reapprove it every year then?
It goes to the Board of Health, and it'll go in their budget, and it goes to town meeting.
Got it.
Okay. All right, so that's done. Franklin Regional Council of Governments, the fuel oil bid.
We do this every year.
Yeah. Has it been advantageous for us to lock it in?
Oh, there's no doubt.
Okay.
And there's no doubt that bidding with like 23 other towns is gonna get us a price that we're never, because it's
Okay.
such a
Gonna get on
bulk
our
bid.
I assumed it was, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah,
we
it's a
were-
bulk
Yeah.
buy, and then we
Yeah, I
buy
thought we were.
diesel and heating fuel through them.
Mhm.
Oh,
And
good.
when the call comes in every year, and I give the form to Tom, and he checks the numbers, because he determines how much diesel could change based on if we've ordered too much and had to pay to store it, or whatever. And then the oil for all the buildings. So this is diesel for all of the departments, including fire, and then the building, heating oil for all of the buildings. And what happens is that they open the bids, they're opening them at 10 a.m. on Monday, May 20th at their office. And we have to they'll send the pricing out, and you have until Wednesday at 4 p.m. to determine whether you're participating. Now, we've never not participated because the option is that it's never going to be good. You're never going to usually beat that price.
Right.
But I usually take that, contact Tom, say, does everything look okay? You know, do we not want to do this? And then usually you voted to allow me to then sign for the bid, because we only get those 48 hours, because obviously they're not going to keep that bid open.
Okay.
Anybody who's bid is bidding within a very small window, because they're then going to purchase the oil they need. So
Okay.
you don't have the ability to wait and put it on agendas and come back with it. So we do this every year.
I have a question on it though. So I know you do a lot of work to get our town a special rate for electric, right? Our citizens there's the buy-in for electric. Is there a way to leverage this for citizens to get a special rate on oil?
No, this is
You
a
would-
municipal bid.
Okay.
It's a municipal bid.
So we need to entertain a motion to allow Andrea to sign for the fixed price oil bid.
We need to give you permission, authorize you to select a contract on behalf of Northfield.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
For
that,
for the diesel.
I'm just
anyway.
looking at the language in the
Yeah.
email.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there a motion? in
Yeah,
there?
I'll make a motion to authorize the town administrator to
Select
Execute the contract.
execute a contract, select a bid in
on behalf of.
consultation with the highway department on behalf of the town of Northfield.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? If none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, next up, authorize
Yeah,
DJ and
Jacques.
Andrea Lamas to submit comments on behalf of the Select Board to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding First Light relicensing.
Yep.
Are you coming to us each time you have something to go to them, or do we just giving you a blank?
No, so let me explain.
Yeah.
Okay, so Andrea and I met with the towns plus FERCog plus the lawyers that all of the towns in FERCog have paid for this process. We met last week, so there were no documents as of Thursday for the homework. We just received a first draft, and I've been giving hints about this in prior meetings, that we're operating off of the May 22nd deadline. That's why this is coming in now. So I asked Sandra to put the first draft into the Select Board folder. She also printed it out. And it's a template for all of the towns plus FERCog, so that we can, mostly me, will edit where things are specific to Northfield in this document. The topics at a high level are erosion, riverbanks, sedimentation, water quality and temperature, invasive plant management, non-project use permitting. So First Light actually has a permit process with folks along the river. It's first I've heard of it, so need to dive into that. As well as related historical and cultural impact. So the documents that you have also went not only to the people participating in the process, that also went to the historical commissions plus the tribes, the tribal coordinator. So the goal is to have each town and FERCog submit comments. We already did the motion to intervene and the standing declaration. That's what you approved beforehand. So this is an additional step which outlines the concerns that we want FERC to take into account when going through the hearing process with First Light. So for example, under historical and cultural management, active engagement didn't happen, and the resulting traditional cultural properties plan was simply a literature survey, and we wanted to see active management and steps and consultation, for example, with the tribes as well as the historical commissions. So that will be called out in the comments going for May 22nd. Because this is confusing and involves, now we have a parallel process at the state level with the Department of Environmental Protection. We asked FERCog to give us a set of dates and actions, and that's in this one with the flow chart. So, and I'm just laughing because even I, who've been at this for 4 years, really had to study the flow chart. But in a Where's Waldo kind of manner, we are actually here. We still need to go through all of these. Okay, so what you're authorizing us to do is to simply take the template that we have, makes any adjustments that we need to, including, you know, your typical things like town of Northfield versus insert town here. And I usually do all of that work and go back and forth with FERCog and whomever else. And then Andrea has the account that allows us to submit so that we can formally submit it to FERC. And Andrea weighs in on it too, but
I rely heavily.
I'm the one in the weeds, so she keeps me,
Not to make a pun.
yeah, literally, I'm in the weeds.
So you mentioned a list, which I didn't get the whole list of, but including erosion, sedimentation. But on this that you gave me, it's just invasive, that you gave us, just invasive species and the cultural. Are there, but each of those items is going to be addressed that you listed?
Yes, more stuff is coming. We're actually working with a consultant, the towns in FERCog. The consultant is, when we met on Wednesday, was in the process of, had just had a new baby and was moving. So there will be other drafts of this prior to the May 22nd. And that's why we're looking for authorization, unless you guys want to meet
And I can give you the
beforehand.
topics. Erosion, riverbank sedimentation is one of the
Yep.
focus areas. Water quality and temp, that you're seeing that here with invasive species, historical cultural impact, and non-project use permitting. Those are kind of the
Overarching.
ballpark,
Yeah.
overarching topics that are sort of coming in this format that will be customized to Northfield. And one of the reasons is not to just not do the work, it's to actually hit on the same topics that concern each town.
So
that
it's
there's
synergistic.
so that there's a coordinated effort to say, these are the topics that have are bothering these towns for these specific reasons in our town, but where we don't think there's been enough addressed, because there was some discussion about that being more impactful.
Right.
Instead of sending 20 from this town, 20 from this town, if we focused
Yep.
that around some themes and each town talked about the impact, then the hope was that it would be taken more to heart and be easier to manage at the FERC level.
Yep. And if you look at the timeline that I handed out, where it says general game plan between now and June 3rd, they're still editing the erosion comments. These are the non-erosion comments.
Right.
So we're going to get the erosion comments probably later this week, because this came out on Friday. And those will do double duty for when we get into the state process as well. So that's the advantage of
Working together.
working together, plus you do your text and then you take that text and then you adapt it to the next step in the process. So, and also I just wanted to give you a sense that this will probably be a recurring topic on the agenda, because as we get into DEP, I'm then going to have to come back and then ask to do a similar document to go into the DEP 401 water quality process.
Okay,
Does that make sense?
yeah,
Am I making sense, I should say? Yeah.
enough.
Well,
Okay.
the town, like we just voted at town meeting, and the town, I think unanimously or close to, amended one of the items to include the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation update of March 21, 2024. And so I just wanted to put in, my request to make sure that that's listed as a specific. I mean, we're one town, but this is something that our town
Yep.
has, as a group, voted on,
And
thinking is important.
just so you know, because now I'm going to put on my historical commission hat, we've already discussed that in the historical commission, including the HIP.
You're right.
Now I forget what it stands
Advisory
for.
Council on Historic Preservation.
Yes, they came out with a state policy statement in late March, and Joe Gravelin brought that before the historical commission, and we discussed it, and we will be using parts of that in the historical commission notation. So I'm going to be going through this document as the historical commission person and the select board person. Hope
Good.
that helps.
You can have two hats and just switch it as you do.
Yes.
Okay, well,
They're all coming, they're all merging, all the lanes are merging, so.
okay. Do I hear a motion to authorize BJ and Andrea Lamas to submit comments on behalf of the Select Board to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission regarding First Light relicensing?
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Is there last time you did this, there was a do not discuss, I forget the.
When we're in
Non-disclosure.
negotiations,
Yeah,
when we're in negotiations, we can't discuss while we're in negotiations, similar to any other kind of negotiation. We're not in negotiation.
okay.
We're outside of negotiations and we're commenting on the process.
Okay.
And I just also want to point out that the woman that we're working with, Andrea Donlin, at FERCog, who's in planning, was the river steward for the Connecticut River Conservancy. So she does incredible work. And much of the reason why we even get cohesive and cogent documents is because of Andrea. So just shout out to her.
Awesome.
Okay, no further discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Thank you.
unanimous, okay. Let's move on.
You're thanking us for a huge pile of work.
Send positive vibes for the next, because it's
Okay.
going to be a busy week.
Now, everybody got the thing from the results from the annual town meeting?
Yep.
There was an error in there that I wanted to address because I wasn't sure whether it was a. It said that motion by Sarah Kern, second by Alex Mather to amend Article 14, and I didn't make a motion to amend, and it wasn't voted on.
You have to take that up with the town clerk. This is the town clerk's document.
Got it.
So
Okay.
talk to Amanda.
Okay.
She has the notes that go into this.
This
Okay.
is just here for our information.
Right, I just
Yeah.
thought you might want to have an
Yeah.
opportunity to discuss town meeting, and so we had to put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
So I don't have any agenda with this, and I didn't know that any board member did, but since we just recently had town meeting, I didn't know if there was, people wanted to talk about anything. I wanted to make sure that it was on here and that you
I
had
think
it.
the people at the meeting had a good chance to voice their concerns on anything, so.
Well, this is you guys talking on town meeting
Yeah, I know,
afterwards.
yeah.
So, yeah.
You have any further comments, or?
Not right now, no.
No, same here. Like I said, I thought things were well discussed. People were civil to each other.
They were thoroughly discussed, especially the last 2 hours, yeah.
And then I can just give you so once the results are done and submitted and sent, this process also then now transfers to getting loaded onto Gateway, which is the DOR, because we put all the
Oh.
budget in for next year. And that's the beginning of the budget, of the tax rate setting process, is getting this in. Because then the next thing is, the assessor's piece going through and the collection piece, and then ultimately that's what you'll see in the fall, because it's the budget that drives what you have to raise and appropriate. We are still waiting for the Senate and the House conference committees to make final recommendations on the unrestricted general government aid, commonly called UGA.
Cherry? Oh.
very attractive.
That really trips off the tongue.
Yeah, oh god. But those
Ooga.
are some of the revenues that will happen over the almost not brought in a June 30th budget, so it will carry probably a little bit. So once all those, and then as the June 30th closes and we see everything that happened in the prior fiscal year, we start to fill that into something called Gateway on DOR, and we start to put in the revenues, we put in this, and this all will compute the values of property that the assessors have, all that goes in, and that's will ultimately form the computation of what needs to be raised to make the tax rate. So this is the beginning of the piece for next year's tax rate. So, and if anybody had any questions or anything, but yes, this is the document that the town clerk produces. So.
Any further discussion? Okay, let's move on then. Thank you, Andrea. Massachusetts Selectmen's Association Rural Conference.
I think, Sarah, you want to talk about this?
So this was a really interesting conference, and
If you read your
there were
beacon,
some
there's
very
a whole page on it.
specific. Oh yeah, there were some really specific points that I thought were relevant to our town. Kind of the first half was about our Congress members and their staff were telling us items about what was coming up and how we can contribute and reach into the process by sending letters and comments. But there were a couple things that were newish to me and I thought were really relevant to the town. One of which was the idea of pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes, and many of us know about that. I hadn't realized that extended to like forest acres and open land. So a gentleman said that one of the points is that a small amount of state funding to towns that have a lot of open space and forest would really equalize, small in the state's coffers, but would really equalize the rights of the town and the finances of different towns. And he said it's a diffuse public good. So when we have forest acres and we have open land that are open for other people to use and hike through and stuff like that, that's a diffuse public good. And the idea was that the cost of that, of maintaining the roads and doing all those kind of things, would also be borne by the public. So that is payment in lieu of taxes. These are not taxable because of the, some of the educational ones and some of the state forests that are on our land, but we need to make sure that we provide access. And another was some interesting information about the Municipal Vulnerability Program, which is money to retain the water systems that we currently have and the sewer systems which we currently have, and potentially, improve them. And so I thought that was interesting and something I hadn't known about. And then the second half of the meeting was folks who were a coalition of nonprofits that are investing in affordable housing. And
I saw that.
they are taking underused housing and replacing it with either refurbishing it, and they thought it was a good idea to demolish and replace with modulars because it would be less expensive than fixing them. And our town grant coordinator asked a question, says, we just did this survey. Our town really thought that rural character was an important item for the town members. And I was really astonished by the answer that got back, which is one of the things I wanted to bring up. The quote is that she should, quote, push back on preserving the rural character, meaning, and then she said, this is not our town grant coordinator, this was the answer that she got. Then they suggested phrasing the loss of rural character as an opportunity, and that preserving rural character was the opposite of preserving rural towns. And this was accompanied by some stats that, I'm I do data, that's what I do, and they showed correlation charts, which said the older the population is, it's inversely correlated with economic activity. But we know that correlation is not causation, and so I had some issues with some of the stats. I was a little bit surprised that at this organization they were saying that rural character, the loss of rural character, should be seen as opportunity. So those were, I'm going to try to, my notes are copious, but I'm going to try to put together a list of the things that they said that people could do and the dates that they could do them. Some of them will be outdated already because I've been busy, but so that citizens could write in letters and stuff like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one, I had mentioned to you, so she handed out the Beacon, which is their newsletter.
That's just the page that was written on that
And
particular.
I don't know
Sure.
if this is true for the rest of you, but I'm not on that mailing list for that.
Yeah, you would get an email from the MMA, and
I don't know if you guys are or not, but I
I'm
didn't
gonna
see that
check
in my
in with that.
email, so just FYI.
I'll check in with them to see why all of
Okay.
your select board emails should be getting the link
Yeah.
to the Beacon, which is a pretty interesting newsletter.
Yeah.
All right,
News publication.
let's move on. Double poles on Glenwood.
That was me again. So there was a state list that had double poles, and these weren't included, and we've got at least 9 sets of double poles that are on Highland and down Glenwood, and so I've got photographs of those. My kid, I sent him out, I'm like, take your bike, go take some pictures. So I can send those to you, but I also wanted to ask, where's the site? You said that there was a site where those are listed?
No, well, so as of May 7th,
Yeah.
I did get the new email. It's not a site, I called Verizon first because
Okay.
they have joint ownership with Eversource in Northfield. And they sent me, I mean, this is the list I got in December. This is the list I got in May. Now, I pointed out, I'll talk to you about Glenwood in a second particularly.
Okay.
So a lot of poles have been removed.
Okay.
So
This
there has
was
been-
all of Northfield?
Well, yes and no, but
Oh.
yes, presumably it's supposed to be. But in exploring this, I then went to Eversource because Eversource actually has sometimes it's Verizon, sometimes it's Eversource. They have joint ownership, but in Northfield, Eversource has the maintenance. That's Eversource. So I reached out to our community relations specialist from Eversource because we have one for Verizon who I spoke to, and now I have the one from Eversource, and I put this question to them. And I know the poles on Highland. They are 35-1 through 35-10. I have the pole numbers. There's also one at the end of Burnham, and there's also one at the end with Highland. So I have all the pole numbers. But I specifically asked that because I do not see those appearing on this list. So I specifically reached out and said, hey, that's great that these other poles are done, but there's some other poles that I'm not seeing. So we had many back and forth emails, and he came to town, and he brought with him somebody from Eversource. So one of their electrical operations supervisors went up where the golf course is. They walked down and they did a field check of double poles in and around the area. He says that after talking with the supervisor, comparing notes, then they talked to planning and scheduling. It turns out that there's some switchover happening to a different software that Eversource wants to use. So Verizon's not seeing all the poles on this particular software, and there's some merger happening that's not showing. I said, well, that's interesting because I didn't see it on the December one either, but not
Right.
going to get too touchy. I'm trying to push the guy to fix the problem.
Right.
So he said they talked to planning and scheduling, and it sounds like all of the poles on Glenwood except pole number 35-5, he thinks still needs a transfer from Comcast, are on the schedule to be pulled. They have a list of 21 poles in Northfield, and he's pushed to ask them to be moved in and around June 1st or the first week of June.
Nice.
So we'll follow up and see if that actually happens. They have also visited Highland, Burnham, Winchester, Maine, Wanamaker, North Lane, Glen Road, Maple Street, Captain Beers Plain, and Millers Falls, checking the double poles. So hopefully 21 that they have, which should include a majority of the ones on Glen Glenwood will be coming down in the next 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And on Glenwood, they made them bigger, right? Because they put in 3-phase, because and they made them taller.
A lot of
they
it
raised up all the lamps.
A lot of that had to do with adding internet, Comcast, because they had to be tall to handle electric, phone, and then internet.
Right, but they raised the street lights up higher, which means the spread is wider. And I know sometimes we can put, you can ask them to put a shield on it that would just limit it so it's not as bright, because they've raised it up to be the kind of house height, bedroom level height. And so could you request that?
We have to go through public safety issue on that because it has to cover a certain portion of the road. They do that often in parking lots where it's going to shine in, but roads have a different standard.
Okay.
But if you have pole numbers in particular that you think are annoying, we can certainly reach out to him and give him a pole number and ask them to review that.
And who's the public safety that does that?
Well, it'd be somebody through, I'm assuming, through
Mass
Eversource.
Through this mass?
No, I mean, I think Eversource handles it.
Okay.
So I don't know what the standard is. I'm assuming they do.
Okay. Cool. Thanks.
So I'm late to the party, so what's the beef with double poles? Is it just an aesthetics thing?
Yeah, usually they put in a new pole and they transfer over, and then they should take the second pole.
Okay.
And there's no need for second poles to be there. It's more egregious in some place than others. They replaced if you go down Glenwood, every one of them is a double pole, including the double leaners. So some of them have 4 poles, 2 this way and 2 this way. So at some point, those should come out. It's a lot of poles.
Just FYI, this came up at FERCog Council, I think, too.
Yeah.
And it's been expressed to the legislative team that this affects multiple communities, not just Northfield. But Sarah raised it on Glenwood, and apparently there's more elsewhere in Northfield that are going to be addressed. So.
Yes. Well, the municipal efficiency bill that the governor's pushing forward, because this is such a problem.
That's where it is. It's going to be
Because this is such a problem across the state. They are going to they've put in that legislation. If it passes, it's still being reviewed by the House and Senate. They have to pass and then go to the governor's desk. And the governor's proposing it. There'd actually be a fine for poles that are up past a certain time because there's no recourse. This is it. We can complain, you can complain, but they don't have any recourse to do it. And certain people take more time than others. So often the new pole goes in because electric wants it or phone wants it. And then the other vendors who didn't really care take their sweet time in moving because they got to go out and move their stuff before a pole can be removed.
okay.
So there's some talk now about towns
Legislating.
being able to fine after a certain period of time for every double pole.
Okay.
To give them a little push.
Thank you.
All right, we're not going to be able to finish up because we have an executive session.
These are pretty straightforward. Can we run through these and then not return to public session? Would that work?
Well,
I don't have a time schedule.
Oh, thank you. Okay, let's, topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair, 48 hours in advance, there's none. Committee and board appointments, we have Joel Fabrizio to the Economic Development Advisory Committee.
Yeah, I move that we appoint Joel Fabrizio to the Economic Development Advisory Committee, term expiring June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Sorry.
Any further discussion? Everybody's
No,
So she visited an economic development meeting, and she
Yeah.
really has a lot of background that would be useful.
I saw that, yeah.
yeah, especially workforce development.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Is that term expiring correct?
Yes,
Yeah,
because
they
they're all
Because
renewed
everything renews at the
on
same time.
Just
We're
making
doing a whole
sure.
bunch of them at the first meeting.
So
It'll be
we
in
do it now, or we don't appoint her until
July.
It's-
July.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Alexander Meisner as constable, term expires at the end of the next annual election, May 6, 2025. What happened is there was only 3 people running and there was 4 seats. They had 3 people with write-in votes, and all 3 got the same amount of votes. 2 of them bowed out, so Alex is what we're left with.
Well,
And Alex wanted to do it.
No,
Can't wait to
technically
see
it's
him
a
in that white
failure-
uniform.
Technically, it's a failure to elect
Yeah,
because you had a three-way tie. Then what they do
Oh,
is
I
they
see.
traditionally then call the people who were written in, and Alex emerged as the candidate who wanted it. And it has to go on the ballot next year
Yeah.
because it only is until the next election.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But he was elected because he had write-in votes.
But
Correct.
because all three of them were, technically, yes, but
Okay.
because all three were the same, they say it's a failure to elect.
Yeah.
But that's how they then go to the people who were technically voted.
There was
and
a
start
tie
with
for
them.
the
I went to the town
write-ins.
clerk and she told me the other two weren't interested.
So then
Yeah.
they go to
Yeah.
the people who.
So
who-
I can say, because I'm proud that I actually wrote them in. It means, Alex said, it means the world to me, a local civil process and common law peace officer involved with our town functions and others. I look forward to coming before the board at some point. To which I replied, be ready for the why Northfield question. And he said, and my response will be, Northfield chose me. So he's actually very excited about still being able to be involved with the town and have it kind of line up with what he's going to school for.
Okay.
Anyway, so I move that we appoint Alexander Meisner as constable, term expiring at the next annual election, May 6th, 2025.
Second.
No further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
So
Proposed,
I had a question about committee boards and appointments, which is the finance, because I know David used to be on the, is on the, or used
No,
to be?
he's resigned.
that's
I
on the
resigned.
announcement,
Okay.
Sarah, that's on the announcements down below. We're gonna announce that there's gonna be a,
Well, I know, I was wondering whether is there a town policy that you can't, there's not a town policy that you can't be both, right?
Yes,
Two
There
elected
is a
positions.
town policy?
just select board and finance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
all right, proposed agenda items.
So you have a sheet.
Have a sheet here on our
Yeah.
homework.
To find
I
my
like that.
bottom.
Anybody have anything extra?
Yes, so we've got the town administrator's contract is coming up, and the town administrator's job description revisiting. Town meeting on a Saturday with childcare. I'd like to talk about the possibility of having town meeting on a weekend. You know, if we were to have it at the school, we could hire some teenagers to watch the kids, and so we might get better participation, or more, whatever. Not better, just people would be free
Yeah.
to do it.
That's just so you know, it's a bylaw change. So
Okay.
when you're gonna have that discussion, it's a bylaw.
Hang on just a second. And then I'd like to visit very specifically electronic voting and get an idea of how much those would cost and have a real discussion about that. Because we've kind of touched on it, and when the town moderator came, he spoke about it. So I'd like to address it and talk about what the cost would be and the different possibilities.
Orange did it, I can find out the cost.
Yeah, but I mean, so yes,
Yeah.
I'd like that to be on the agenda. And then,
We didn't put
Curious
that in the
about
budget,
I'm sorry?
Anyways, no, I can't say anything because we're just talking about what to put on there. But
And
yeah.
then the 2018 environmental bond bill. This is something that I learned about at the Mass Select Board Rural Conference. And it's something that I'd like to talk about as a board.
All right. Anybody have anything else?
I assume we're going to be doing priorities, so I think a lot of what's on our list will need to be revisited under priorities.
Yeah.
And the budget for FY25 is already set, so there were some suggestions that we had about the calendar.
Mhm.
I had put, but I'll just propose those when we get to the priorities part, that discussion that we do every year.
Mm.
Okay. Announcements. Moderator Nathan Latoil is accepting applications for an appointment to the Finance Committee. So we have them
It's on
do
the
a citizen-
homepage.
It's on the
It's on
homepage
it's
on
on the
website.
homepage?
Yep.
Would they do a citizen's interest?
No, they contact Nathan.
Contact Nathan on the homepage.
Yeah, it's all, Nathan is I mean, I don't know, does he use
Does he
the
have his
citizen
email
interest
set
form?
up
I mean,
in?
I guess you can, but usually, yeah, the information's on the
You click
homepage.
the link and it goes right into an email to.
Okay.
Yeah, click the link and he'll get
Okay.
the email if you're interested.
Alrighty. So,
And then I'm just going to remind people that the deadline for any FERC comments from citizens or other committees, FYI, are due May 22nd. And if you need more information on how to do that, Senator Comerford has put all that information up on her website. She has a good summary of the whole process on her website.
Is that what is that website? Like, is it comerford.org or something like that?
You can find it, just Google Senator Comerford. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know
off
what the
top.
exact one is. I can.
Okay.
I follow her on Facebook, so and also she sent it in our, we have it in our inboxes. She sent an email
Yeah.
with the links in the email,
Okay.
so,
So make sure you get those out.
yeah.
okay, recognition for service, Aaron Degnan. Congratulations on becoming certified accountant.
I'd like to do can we do like a little certificate that we've done in the past where
Yeah.
we put a frame around it, because it's such a unique and important
Yeah.
milestone.
Yeah.
And Sandra, do you think we could do one like that, and then we'll all sign it?
Sure.
So then when she actually gets
Okay.
appointed for the big role, then
I have one too. Are you?
Go ahead.
And the Montague Reporter also reported on this, but there was a big wreck in 2022, which involved 3 life flights, and it was down by the boat ramp, I think.
Yep.
And the survivors just came back this weekend to thank the fire department for their good work in helping with that crash.
It was right before the Memorial Day parade.
May 29th.
Yeah, I remember that. I think of them every Memorial Day.
Yeah. It was a motorcycle club that's actually made up of firefighters. I
Yeah.
don't want to need to interject there.
No, please.
They wanted to do a face-to-face thank you. Not only did they do that, they also gave certificates of appreciation to thank all the firefighters that were there, EMS personnel that were there,
And police.
Northfield Police,
Yay.
State Police, the three air ambulances, the helicopters that we landed at the boat ramp for transport of victims, and all the additional ambulances to the transport. They had certificates of appreciation, which I have to get out to the different agencies,
Oh, nice.
as well as the personnel. It was. I couldn't make it. I was at a training session for my construction supervisor's license over the weekend that I had booked 2 months ago. But they did come up. We put in birds and dogs, and they shook hands, and they are very appreciative of everybody that was there that day because it made a difference. There were no fatalities from that incident.
Yeah.
Severe injuries.
They wanted to say thank you.
Is it on your Facebook page too?
It will be.
Okay, good.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, at this time, I'll entertain a motion by voice vote to enter into executive session to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health rather than the professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. And
No.
after the executive session, we will not return.
Not to
May-
return to
may I
public
speak-
session.
May I speak to that?
Sure.
I'm assuming that what we're gonna discuss is my medical care and
Yeah.
whatnot. I don't have a problem not going into executive session. If it has to be, then I'm fine with it. But I've got nothing that I'm concerned about.
No, it's his option.
It's your option, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, then let's, why don't you come up? We're gonna
okay.
talk to you, Skip.
Take very long.
Yeah.
Take my blood pressure, no, I just.
We won't ask you to.
Thank you.
So do we need a motion to move into?
No?
No.
Just
Yeah.
withdrawn?
We're
Oh.
just doing a regular
Okay.
session then.
Yeah, it shouldn't take
Oh, we
very
didn't
long.
even do a motion. Okay.
And we already cleared the deck, so.
Yeah, no, this was just as a routine because the board, last year they passed the thing and it said that board shall send the chief to, under the law, it shall send him to, just have a physical, to show if he's fitness for duty test, I guess that's what they call it officially.
Yeah.
So, realizing that we kind of left it late, we quickly scrambled and did that. We normally do it under executive session, so we did it
Okay.
through that routine process, but that's on
No,
him
if
when he
you
wants
wanna-
to.
yeah.
So Noah, we sent him to a doctor that does these tests down at the EIOU,
AEIOU.
right, which does
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
pre-employment screenings, does all sorts of screenings for medical. And
They actually do my screening for my CDL.
they do, DOT cards,
screen.
they do all sorts of stuff.
So they've got my records in.
So I sent them just, the job description and the language from the law so they could see why we were sending him and understand it. And I got back an email that just said that he's examined you, did a complete exam and a history, and that he was originally waiting for some medical information, but he received that because he emailed me again yesterday, and that he successfully passed his fitness for duty exam. That's really all there is to it.
That's pretty much it. I went down Thursday and went through the process. And there was no issues other than he had gotten a statement from Bay State Health from the Heart and Vascular Division. And he just wanted a little bit different verbiage. So he handed it to me and said, could you just follow this up with Bay State Heart and Vascular? So I took a look at it and I couldn't read his handwriting. So I
A
asked
real
him,
doctor.
Yeah, a real doctor. So I
No
asked him
handwriting.
to explain what he had written. So I did. And as I'm looking at it, I'm looking at the letter. And it had all my patient information, all my data and information.
Mm-hmm.
And the letter goes, Mr. Lovett, honest to God, had a myocardial infraction in 2015, and his last echocardiogram was in 2022, and which was, I'm not Mr. Lovett.
I was just gonna say, who's Mr. Lovett?
Was totally
Yeah.
wrong.
Okay.
Wow.
He was
So-
They switched it. Oh my gracious. Well, I'm
Yes,
glad you caught it.
So I caught it, and he couldn't believe it. His staff couldn't believe it. So when I took it back, I hand delivered it back to Bay State. They couldn't believe it, and they said, "Well, this was on Thursday." They said, "If we can get it done, we'll give you a call. But if not, come in Friday and pick it up." So I called Friday, and it had gone up the ladder all the way to the top of Bay State Health Systems because it involves HIPAA.
Privacy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
See?
yeah.
Patient's private
And a
information.
whole lot of stuff. So anyway, I did get the letter.
And this is actually yours.
Yeah, this is actually mine because I asked to look at it so I could read it to make sure
Does
Mr.
it say
Lovett was
Mr.
no longer.
Smith?
I couldn't believe that mistake had happened.
Oh.
Anyway, that's what delayed getting. That's what the piece of paper.
Right, he said he was
looking
just
for.
waiting for some information,
Yeah,
and
from Bay
he
State.
was very good. He emailed me Monday and said
Yeah.
he got everything he needed.
Yeah, yeah.
So the long and the short of it is that you took the pre-appointment screening physical and passed.
Well, he took what they call a fitness for duty.
Fitness
They
for-
they may
fitness
do
for-
different,
Okay.
depending
Yeah.
on what, they all have different
I see.
criteria.
And this was in the act that was signed by the governor last November.
Yeah.
And then that information regarding our joint responsibility between you and the select board to do this every year.
Yeah.
And we didn't have an opportunity, unfortunately, to talk about some of the steps that go into what happened with the extension process last year and with the extension process this year. So it all kind of played out at town meeting.
Yeah.
And that I thought was unfortunate because it seemed to put a lot of focus on the town's liability, which does exist,
Yeah.
right? And these are steps that we all need to follow, and you need to follow as the department head.
Right.
And we just discussed tonight that we've had fire things on the agenda several times. And so I don't want to go into another town meeting where we haven't all had a discussion about what's required, what's suggested, what is due, right? So that we don't go into a town meeting without having resolved that as this group is now, right? I think it's unfortunate we're doing this after the town meeting. We were actually going to have a public session on firefighting prior to the town meeting, and then we pushed that off because we got the extension request, but we didn't have an actual discussion with you about the extension request. And my other concern / question is around when the act came out in last November and the governor signed it, giving you another year, which was already partially used up because it takes them so long to do it. And that is also confusing for town folks, right? Was that information and the concerns about the requirements, the advice that was provided to the legislative committee and the advice that they then used to only do it for 1 year instead of 2+, was that shared with the firefighters?
No, it wasn't, but all, from what I understand, all the requests that went in, and there were numerous requests across the county, some were for 2 years, mine was like for 2.5. There were some that were for 3 years. There were some that were for 5.
Right.
The legislature decided, and I don't know where this started or came from, 1-year extensions, and then they said we'll give a 1-year extension and then come back for it to be renewed. I don't know why they
But
did
they
that across the
also,
board.
they also in the feedback specifically addressed the personal goal and the fact that this was a slippery slope doing it one year at a time,
Yeah, good.
right?
Yeah.
So all of that feedback in that letter wasn't really discussed. We discussed it at one point in our select board meeting.
Yeah, I
And-
never saw the letter.
Well, there wasn't a letter. There was an email.
The
That
email.
came back
Okay.
that just said that the
Whatever.
PARAC had some
Yeah.
concerns, but that
Yeah.
that our legislators would do whatever, obviously
Got
the
that.
town
Right,
requested.
the town requested.
But that it was the public safety committee that they submitted it to that was asking questions
Right.
about the length. And I think they may be the ones that you're referring to that made the 1-year recommendations, because I don't think
Okay.
the legislators actually, usually by the time the bill gets before the legislators, they don't sit and discuss everybody's.
Right, yeah.
They rely on committee reports. They
Yeah.
rely on
Right.
recommendations. So I think it was the committee. We don't know that information. That wasn't
Right.
even conveyed to us.
Yeah.
But they did say that PARAC, which is the retirement board, and for their own reasons, which I think have less to do with volunteer, but certainly have to do with
Career.
with career firefighters.
Right.
But still, they're watching people continuing to exceed, and
Yeah.
the retirement board is expressing some concerns about pushing off these ages of mandatory retirement.
Right.
And that feedback was shared in that legislative process. And then it was sent to the town administrator after they signed the bill, and then it was sent to you. But we've never had a discussion all at the same time like we are doing tonight that I think would have been useful for all the firefighters, particularly
Yeah.
at the town meeting.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well,
I know they're
that-
upset.
Yeah, and that should also be shared across the state and the county, in all honesty, because there are some fire chiefs
There's mixed
serving-
messages.
Oh, by all means.
Right, we've talked about this.
And there are some fire chiefs who have had a blank extension with no time limit that they
Yeah.
were granted. And then there are some that have gone for whatever number of years.
Yeah.
And the problem is it takes so long for that process, and I don't know where the delay is. There's some towns, especially down east, down towards the Cape, that they've got their extensions in 2 to 3 weeks.
It depends.
Ours was months. And
It depends
there
on
are
when
some
when
And
they're
there are
filed.
some chiefs that are still waiting.
It depends on
Here
when,
on their
we've,
extension.
we've talked
Yeah.
about this.
It
This is-
depends on when they're filed. Unfortunately, some of those other communities that
Yeah.
can do it by a council, they can get a council vote very quickly and get it in during a
Yeah.
specific part of the legislative
Yeah.
session, and it moves quickly. But we
Mhm.
wait for town meeting, which always comes in
Right.
May, which comes at the end of the sessions, which budget time, which slows everything down. Then they go
Yeah.
into summer recess and they're only doing so
Mhm.
many.
Yeah.
It just,
If I,
it's by nature of timing.
Mhm.
if I may continue.
Yeah.
I wanted to state this because all these pieces have been stated at different points in the last year, in different meetings, some of which you were here and some of which you were not.
Okay.
So the process to date, because we went through this with the water district as well, if we vote on something in May, it gets submitted like the day after to the legislature.
Mhm.
But then if it's May, they're working on their budget. They work on the budget for the most part until the end of July. Then they take summer break. And the governor, we knew this, we have said this at different points, then the governor will not see it, assuming it is passed by both the Senate and the House, the governor will not see it and will not sign it until October or November, after your birthday. And last year we had this discussion because we needed to do the administrative chief thing, right?
Yeah, right. 'Cause
So
they
I
have
just wanted to make sure that we're putting out all the points that we, especially because David is new,
Yeah.
and especially because of the pain and suffering, for lack of a better term, for the townspeople and the firefighters at the meeting. I want to make sure we're putting out all of the information, all of the components that go into this,
Mhm.
and the fact that we're not just sitting still, like folding over for the state. We've been actually working with you at different points and working with the state to make sure we can get these things through. But the fact of the matter is, they came back fairly firmly
Mhm.
in November and said, no, we're not going to do the 2 years, right?
2.5 years, correct. Yeah.
It's not like you're going for another 5 or something,
Two,
right?
two.
So
That's not my intent.
right, and I just want to make sure we are putting that information from one meeting out to the general public and out to the firefighters as well, because nobody was aware of all of those details.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I abstained on the extension discussion, because it absolutely needed to go in front of the town,
Yeah.
because nobody was cognizant of all of the permutations and subtleties of this convoluted process. Most of all, the firefighters. So that's why I wanted to ask about that November advice might come back to us again this year, and I wanted to give people a heads up, and that's what I tried to do at the town meeting. But moving forward, because we've had several meetings, as I pointed out earlier, on fire-related stuff, there's a number of different things that if we just keep tabling it and pushing it to the next meeting, we're not actually getting some of those things checked off
Checked off.
on the administrative side,
Yep.
not on the firefighting side.
Not on-
Nobody's
right.
questioning your ability and your experience on the firefighting side, Skip.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm so grateful for that. And as Sarah always says, the culture that you've brought, right, is the strong firefighting culture. Most of what needs to be yeah. I mean, let's just state it.
Yeah.
But most of what needs to be done in order for you to close out is administrative,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yes. Correct.
It's not, and when we are harping, as some of our townspeople have pointed out to me, when we are harping on particular details, it's for the benefit of the town, and it's following what are established personnel policies and procedures. And the policies and procedures for personnel follow Massachusetts general law. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we are beholden to represent those tasks on behalf of the town, as distasteful as they might be. And again, I'm going to state for the record, Sandra, please, that this is no reflection on firefighting and your firefighting ability and your firefighting experience and your dedication and love of this town.
Thank you.
Is that clear?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure
very
that's clear, because I want to
Yeah.
reset as we go into our priorities in this next year. I want to reset. We're not talking about firefighting expertise. We are talking about the administrative duties that need to be closed out in order for a new chief to come on board. It's just normal succession planning. And I don't want to be in a position where people are mad at us for doing what we're supposed to do, which is normal succession planning. We had to do it, we were just talking, we had to do it for the police chief. That took several months, but we had an organized process, right? So what I'm going to be pushing into the priorities, again, not on firefighting, is how to have a process that will actually get all of these things accomplished for you and the firefighters and for the select board in tandem, not in opposition to each other,
Oh, no.
in tandem
Right.
to close out your successful career, whenever that might be. Depending on the coming
Well,
full circle
yeah,
back to
right.
depending on our
Legislature,
dependence
yeah.
on the
Yeah.
on the legislature, right? So my other question for you, and then I will yield and not say another thing tonight, is what happens if the legislature doesn't approve this? What do you think we should do?
I would like you to consider possibility of an administrative chief to finish things out if the board decides that's the way they want to go. I've been working closely with my officer corps and bringing them more into the process of what the administrative side of the fire department requires. That's why, Michael Quinn, who is now my deputy, has been with me, both at the select board level, the finance committee. I brought him into that process, and he's been involved with the other processes and the other part of the administration side that is required of the leadership of the fire department. So I'd like to be able to continue to work along with him if we could, if it means, appointing me as administrative chief, like what was done last year, to fill the gap, then so be it. I have no plans on going any farther than the end of 2025. That's my goal, okay? I became chief in 1976, and I would like to give up the chief's job in January 1st, 2026.
Okay, so
That way, I will have served the town as the fire chief for my 50 years.
right,
So, which is quite a milestone.
right,
And
it
it's quite an
is.
accomplishment.
Yep.
I was actually, when I was appointed chief back in 1976, I was the youngest fire chief in the Commonwealth. And there were some concerns about me being a young guy.
Yeah,
You got it on both
Yeah,
sides.
Exactly. So
we got you
anyway-
coming and going. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had two questions, just real
Yeah.
quick. One for Skip and
Yeah.
one for the board. There's a difference between the way they're treating volunteer versus career chief. Is that what I heard?
The law that, it's funny because the law that is on the books, they call it the union law, and basically the law doesn't differentiate between a career chief or a career firefighter and a volunteer. I did learn just recently from an insurance standpoint, obviously a career firefighter or a career chief is exposed to a lot more problems, contaminants, exposure at fire scenes because they're doing it day in, day out all the time, where a call volunteer does not have that same exposure. So it's more occasional, okay? I'm not saying it's not there, but like the presumption coverage on cancer is a real discussion, because a career firefighter who does this, not 365 days a year, but does it as a career 52 weeks out of the year, is exposed a lot more than a call volunteer that might only respond to 1 or 2 working fires in the course of a year. So the exposure level is is huge. So the presumption that, you know, like in my stance, presumption that if I were to contact cancer, God forbid, I hope not, the presumption is that it came from the fire service. Now, as a heating specialist, I've been around heating plants and heating equipment and asbestos and everything else all my life. Okay, so how can you presume that my cancer, should it be diagnosed with it, came from the fire service? It's a presumption of where it come from. I was also a smoker for 25 years. So there's a lot of different aspects that come into what's happened to the fire service and the presumption of cancer and the coverages that are being looked at and the exposure rates is what it comes down to. So there's a huge discrepancy. Yet right now the retirement law is across the board with you.
I see.
So
It was
the
originally put in
That's our
as a career.
presumption stuff.
It was originally as a career, but there was never an exception for call or volunteer.
No,
So,
all the same age things,
yeah,
it's all
yeah,
the same
exactly,
law. But
exactly.
so is the presumption law.
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
you were
yes,
to come down with
yeah,
lung cancer, it's
yeah.
presumed to because he's a firefighter. They don't make any exception.
yeah,
All right.
It's
And
just the
then
way it
my-
is.
yeah.
I'm sorry, didn't mean to
Yeah.
interrupt. And then my other question for the board is, when we're talking about the government won't see it until October, November won't sign it, that's a function of us doing it in the Maytown meeting.
Mhm.
Could we, I mean, we have talked, and I'd like to put it on the agenda, on an agenda. We talked about adding an official special town meeting that we set a time for in the fall and we know when it's gonna be. Would it be useful to put guidance in that on the kind of things that would be covered? So for instance, not that this will happen again, but in this situation, that might be, we would address it then in the fall, we'd be done with, you know, the town would have voted on it, we could submit it and it would have gotten in earlier, something like that. So this is one of, I'd like to add it to the agenda, but also we've discussed it in the past and it's relevant to this conversation because of the timing discussion that you had.
Right, and so what you're saying is the agenda topic, kind of like when we edit. So the agenda topic would then be the timing of not the timing, but kind of putting in,
I think the
And you-
agenda topic is a fall town meeting.
yeah,
Because
Fall
in
town
general.
that hasn't even been,
Right.
Yeah.
A fall town meeting.
Yeah.
And perhaps, I don't know how to word it, so bear with me, but a guidance on the kind of items that we put in each, like the May one is gonna be the budget.
Oh,
But the fall
examples?
one could be the one where the special town, because we had talked about having a town meeting and a special town meeting, and we always, almost, right, have a special town meeting or 6, or not really, but, or several. And having one that we could rely on, because one of, the citizens say, well, we didn't get enough notice. But we always know when the May one is. So if we have one also in the fall, and then we could give guidance as a board on the kind of things we put on there. Because we don't want if we could reduce the size of the May one, well, I guess not much because of the budget, but we could do things like this in the fall one, and then we wouldn't be, now we're gonna be in November and have to do administrative and all that kind of stuff. It won't be relevant now, but
Yeah.
because of your conversation, I thought it was
Yeah.
a good time to talk about it.
Well, you mean, so the proposed agenda topic would be town meetings, and then what we could discuss examples, given our past history, of what would typically go in a special versus a town. Most of it lands in town, but for example, the sewer commissioner stuff was in a special town meeting.
Right.
But that's that's parallel to the main event here, which is SKIP. Yeah, so
Okay.
I mean, we can, hindsight is 20/20, as they say, right?
Always has been.
Yeah. And we haven't had a standard, if you will, special town meeting time. We have picked the times depending on, and tried to keep them to a special topic. So, yeah, there's that.
I have one question on the policies and procedures. I did some work on 2 of the issues that we were going to resolve that, and I didn't know if we could get together with with Mike, the four of us, and get together in the next couple of weeks, if that works.
I'm definitely
I'll
up for
reach-
it. I know
I'll
Heath
reach
is
out.
is pretty swamped, so we'll do a calendar conversation.
Yeah, do a calendar conversation, because I'd like to get that done
Okay.
and finished.
Yeah,
so.
we talked about that. We want to,
Yeah,
great.
Can I
Yeah.
ask you guys to discuss the use? Because consulting time is coming up again.
Discuss what? I didn't hear you.
Discuss the use of a ex-fire chief consultant to help you, to help crank out standard policies and procedures, and then help you adapt what's unique to Northfield to your policies and procedures. If you can't establish a timeline of when the select board and you and the fire department are actually going to have a policies and procedures document by, then I would ask you all to consider having a consultant who's an ex-fire chief, kind of like what we've done with community compact stuff, that would actually come in and do the work, and then you guys all look at it and then finally bring it before the board like we did with the police. We only had 1 or 2 discussions on the
if I'm
police.
not
and
mistaken, I think we're this close to being finalized with it.
You've been this close for about 6 months
it's
at
because-
least,
it's
so.
because we need to get together to finalize it.
I
Right.
just want to say, and I'm even
Yeah.
killjoy here,
Yeah,
the last, and you're talking about this close on the last document you
Yeah.
presented.
yeah.
According to the town's attorney, those are not policies and
Yeah.
procedures, and he would not recommend them. Those are.
That was the feedback that we got. Yeah,
Those are not policies.
No,
I mean,
but
you've
we're
been-
talking about, the chief got from the Mass,
Mhm.
Is it
Western
new?
Mass
Yeah.
I don't know,
Fire.
those have
Yes.
never been
Yeah.
presented to
Is
the
it
board.
new and different?
Yeah.
Can we get a draft before this goes?
What I'd like to do
We're
is,
gonna come-
what I'd like to do is finalize it, finish it, and then present it.
Because I think it's gonna have to go to, you're probably gonna turn
It's
it
gonna
off
have
to
to go
review
to the-
anyway.
But it'd be
So-
nice to
And then we
know
also
how
wanted to
different
get-
it is.
I remember your frustration, and I remember some of the board's frustration about getting the lawyers together also.
Right, yeah.
So we
Yeah.
should, maybe when we meet, we should talk about kind of how you guys envision it.
Yeah.
And then we can,
When
talk about
when
it.
you guys
Sure.
presented back in February,
yep,
I'm not going to go check the minutes, but when
No,
you when you
that's fine.
presented,
Mhm.
there was a discussion that we were this close and we were going to take them back to the firefighters and then bring them back to the select board. And I literally put my head in my hands because it meant at least another couple of meetings during budget season. So that was back in February. We started the discussion last August because that's when we were doing the administrative fire chief proposal. So I'm just asking the board and you, as you go through this process, is to consider if when they come to us, it goes back into that same loop for another few months. Hopefully it won't.
Right.
But if it does, we're coming up on the time when we can actually ask for somebody with fire expertise who can work with you and the team as needed. It's not just a legal thing, it's actually making sure that, as Mike had asked at one of our meetings, they don't want anything to change in the response. I think Andrea said, we just want you to write it down. We're not trying to change the way you do things, like with the
Correct.
firefighting as they
Correct.
come on board and all of that. We just want to write it down.
Right.
That's what we're looking for
Okay.
as part of
Right.
that. So if
And
even
I
that
think-
new part is not in what you guys are talking about, it's not going to be complete. Do you-
I
do you
believe
catch-
it is. I believe it is. I believe everything
Yeah,
is addressed.
That's why I'd like to see
Okay?
a draft
And that's
personally,
what
yeah.
I'd like to do is finalize it,
Yep.
if I can, in the next
Yep.
2 weeks. And then you will have the final draft that we have been working on.
So we'll do it at the next select board meeting then? Is that what you're
well, we
committing
need to
to?
calendar about it, but we'll communicate with the chair and the admin,
Right.
because I know Heath just
Yeah.
said he's super busy. I'm also super busy. I know you
Yeah.
guys are super busy.
Yeah.
We'll do the best we can, as we have in the past.
Yeah.
My question though is we're talking about hiring a consultant. Do we have a consultant in mind? How much does a consultant cost, and where's that money coming from?
It would be a grant application. We're coming into the, is it
Hopefully the community compact, they haven't
community
released it yet.
compact?
Those are best practices, community compact.
That's
Okay.
what we've used
It's
before
a
for
potential.
EMS and some
And that
other
is
things.
The big one you did was the financial policies.
Yeah.
But that one is due when I'm trying to get a beat
We
on
don't know
timeline.
yet because it's not out yet.
So
we
it's
can't
not been
answer that.
released yet, and then when it's
Then
released,
they're rolling.
and then they're
You
rolling.
put
The
them in.
start,
That's
okay.
how we
Yeah.
got the one that just did we did our financial policies and procedures this
Yep.
exact way. They give
Okay.
you a consultant.
And they did all
You
the
put together a
writing.
group, they do all the heavy lifting, you go in and you say, this is Northfield's take, we want this, we don't want this. They say, well, this is the best practice. We say, yeah, that's great, that works for us. No, we don't do purchase
Yeah.
orders, take all that out.
Yeah.
That's the consultant. And then it went to the finance committee who voted and approved it, then it went to the select board who voted and approved it.
Okay.
Same thing we just did with all of that, the document that you all got, the book for town meeting, the new budget book, and it was a community compact grant.
Okay, great. That's the information that I needed.
And is that
So
the one that we're using?
We're looking at a couple weeks, maybe before the next select board meeting in 2
Okay.
weeks. You
Okay.
guys might have something together.
We'll try.
If
We'll
we
try.
can get a draft,
Yeah, yeah.
so that we get that, so that we
Mhm.
have
Mhm.
some time. I'm not gonna act on it right away.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need some time, and
It's
the
gonna need to
lawyer's
go to
gonna
the
have to
lawyer,
go to
yeah.
the lawyer.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
But that, at least we get to that process where we get a draft in a
Sure.
couple weeks. That would be great,
Yeah.
because I'm not gonna make a decision till I see it, yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then it could be another 2 weeks to actually discuss it, but get the draft.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then if
Mhm.
the lawyer craps all over it, then
Hopefully not.
hopefully not,
Well,
but I'm just
hopefully.
saying,
I don't know.
Hopefully not.
we need to see that before, the
Right.
timing is
Right.
coming up.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to say that out loud.
No,
Did I say that out loud? It's time for dinner. The timing is good because if you get us a draft
Mhm.
and the lawyer has some issues
Issues.
with it that are going to be significant, then the community compact will open and we can ask for assistance in coming in and writing it in such a way that the lawyers won't have to disagree.
Well, hopefully our lawyer would make a suggestion on how to word it, and
Well, that,
That-
yeah.
that would
yeah,
be-
I've-
that would be
I've-
nice.
I've never spoken directly to obviously our town council, or,
Yeah.
or,
I don't think
or
it's
did
town
they,
council.
or did they get a hold of me with any questions? So,
okay.
It's a different, it's
Yeah.
not Jeff, by the way. It's the guy who handles personnel,
Right.
and the feedback was,
yeah.
it looked a lot like what was originally submitted.
Mhm.
That was the discussion
Okay.
this past winter. So I'm just giving you a
Yeah.
heads up on that.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not trying to harp, I'm just trying to get to the end
Mhm.
goal for the benefit of you and the firefighters and the select board and
Yeah.
the town,
Correct.
so we don't have another, discombobulated and unfortunate discussion like we did at town meeting.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
I'm good.
Any questions?
No?
Nope. Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
Second.
Second.
Okay.
Great.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Skip.
What do I do with those?
If you voted to approve it, you can sign it, but I abstained.